Hi everyone, hope you're all doing well. I thought I would film. I'm going to do part 2 for my previous video, which is a life update. I didn't have time to film another video, but I finally managed to find the time today. It's always so hard, like finding the time. It's just such a challenge, and I always have so much to do that even talking about it, like, it gets a lot, and it's very overwhelming. And I think, I didn't realise when I was, a teenager that being an adult is really hard, it really, really is. And I don't think anything really prepares you until you become an adult, like, it's just, I feel like I never really have a day where I've got nothing to do, Even though I like being busy, it's like, like I said, it's just very overwhelming, especially, with like the housework and keeping the home clean and tidy and, food shopping is constant, that's never ending. So, yeah, what can you do really? But I just thought I would say that because it's just hard, Like sometimes I think I had it much easier when I was a teenager, but, I was thinking about that, but I don't know, not necessarily because I didn't enjoy school. I hated school. I still do. I personally feel the school I went to was just terrible, and it was an all-girls school. So I think that definitely contributed to feeling really, like down and just not enjoying school, because girls are like, some girls are really mean, and especially going to an all-girls school, it's like, who would enjoy that, Like, it was a nightmare. So, yeah, it's really refreshing when you meet new people and, like when you're talking to new people and they also say that they didn't like school. So, it kind of makes me feel like everyone's got their own experience in life when it comes to education, being raised, like their upbringing, their childhood, the relationships they've had, and the relationship they're in, and, just obviously everyone's life is different. And I feel like, there's just nothing wrong just saying, how you really feel. And I think I'm finally learning to do that more because I still struggle with that. And I think watching 90 Day Fiancé has actually really helped me, express how I feel more, because they're very, like, straightforward. The people on the show are very straightforward and, honest. So I'm really trying to adopt that, just, I don't know the right word, but I'm really trying to adopt the way they are, and I really do gravitate towards people, and I really resonate with people that, they just say it how it is, they don't sugarcoat, they're just very straight up, and I think that's very important. So, yeah, I do want to also mention that I do get really nervous, like filming. Even now, I feel nervous. And I think I definitely, hide it very well. But I don't know, I mean, I feel like anyone would get nervous in front of the camera, and I haven't got a proper setup. So I feel like, the way I'm sitting is not really like the most comfortable. But I think that at the same time, I feel like this setup looks good. And I think it doesn't look bad, despite not having a tripod, and when you haven't got a lot of money, it's really hard to, buy certain equipment that you need. But that is on my to-do list, basically. It's just, I'm not rich, so I can't just buy everything. Even though tripods are not expensive, but when you haven't got a lot of money and you're not working, it's really hard, because obviously I have to, buy food and drink and toiletries, and I need money for travel as well. I only travel when I see family, but I think what I've come to realise is it just seems there seems to be no conflict when I take a break from seeing my family. I've definitely noticed that, I think when you have a break from someone, or, when you have a break from one or two, or however many people, it's really, really, it does change things, and I'm at a point in my life where, I don't want conflict, I don't want drama, I don't want arguments, and, like I said before, if you bring me that, then I'm gonna go, that's it, because, like I've said before, we're all adults, and, there's just no reason to be causing arguments, I'm fully aware, and I fully understand that, arguments do happen, but it's not okay, it's not okay, and it's not acceptable, so, yeah, I'm still finding my own way, really, and I definitely think that life has got better recently, despite the conflict that I've been experiencing, in the past and recently, when I mentioned about a guy that I met literally last Saturday. The thing I want to add on, is I was talking to, sometimes you talk to someone and they happen to be a woman, so they're, and so you think they're going to understand you more, right? If you're the same gender, that is what I would assume. But yeah, I was talking to a woman recently, and yeah, I feel like I explained to her what happened about that guy, and basically I feel like she didn't really understand me, I was expecting her to agree with me, but she didn't. And I think, I said in the moment to her, I respect your opinion, but, I just don't agree with you, and that's fine. But, it's I think it's hard, really, because I'm finally understanding that, you know, people are not, I keep saying, you know, it's like annoying me. It's so hard when you're like talking to talk proper, it's really hard. But I'm saying that basically I'm learning that people are not going to have the same opinion as you, especially when you've mentioned something that's happened, like an argument. I was expecting her to, you know, agree with me, you know, and to think that that guy was wrong, you know. And you don't have to meet the person to know, you know, like, yeah, like that person that you're talking to about something that's bothered you and affected you, they obviously don't need to know the person, is what I'm saying, that has caused you to feel upset, you know. So I was quite disappointed that, you know, she just didn't understand. And it is what it is, really, you know. I keep saying, you know, it's actually irritating me. Gosh, it's so hard, guys. It's so hard. It's just so hard. So I apologise if, you know, if that's, you know, annoying you watching. But it's hard when you're in front of a camera, like, you know, it's that pressure. But I'm really gonna try not to keep saying, you know, it's just so hard. I need to do like lessons on talking, like how to talk properly, like proper in front of a camera. So yeah, I feel like what I've been thinking in regards to that, I've been feeling like, you know, I have no regrets. When I was talking to this woman, you know, I said to her, basically, I am who I am, you know? Like, how I react to things is how I react to things. I'm not going to apologise. And she basically felt like if someone said your lipstick's smudged or your mascara's under your eyes, you know, that kind of thing, then she said that you should just say thanks, I'll fix it. Right, but I just disagree. And like I said, everyone's going to have different opinions. I told her I respect your opinion. Like, I do respect people's opinions, but it doesn't mean that I'm going to do what they say. Like, to do what they think I should do. So, yeah, I'm the sort of person where basically if someone gives me their opinion and I disagree, then I'm not going to take, you know, I'm not going to take on their opinion, if that makes sense. Like, whenever people give advice and give their opinion, like, I don't tend to take it on board because at the end of the day, it's like I'm living life on my terms, you know? The way I'm living my life is the way I want to live my life, and I just, you know, strongly feel that I just don't want someone in my life who doesn't appreciate me and isn't, you know, just doesn't respect me. You know, I think respect is so important when it comes to love, and if that's not there, it's not gonna work, you know? And I feel like when you listen to other people's experiences in love, it really teaches you a lot. And like I said, you know, this show has taught me so much. And the stuff that the people have been saying, I really feel like it's so true. And I've even said while I've been watching, I've said, oh, I agree, or so true, or same. And there's one guy on there. There was one woman and a man, so a couple, and basically they was talking with each other, and they came to the conclusion that they didn't want to be together anymore. Or the woman was ending the, you know, I think marriage, or I don't know if they were married, but basically she ended it, and she was really upset, and he was really upset, and they was crying, and she said that sometimes you picture a life with someone and you feel like you have this deep connection and it just doesn't work out. And it's so true. You know, I completely agree, because, you know, everyone's trying to find love, and I think what I'm finally understanding is, and realizing, is that, you know, it takes a long time, and you're going to meet different people before you find your person. But when she was crying and he was crying, it, you know, it just, I didn't really like, I was just like watching, I was just taking it in. But yeah, I fully understood in that moment that, you know, it's hard when you love someone, and I get it, but obviously if you know in your heart that this just isn't working, then it's not working, and it's better to let it go. You know, I never feel like you shouldn't try and force things, you know, or you shouldn't try and give it another chance. You know, I feel like when love hurts, then it just won't work out, you know, and love shouldn't hurt. You know, the minute that it starts to hurt and you start to feel upset, then, you know, it's not gonna work out. That's it. And I feel like also, whether you've just met someone new or they're actually your partner, I feel like if they make you cry, that's obviously a clear sign that, you know, this is just wrong. You know, like that this is not your person. And I feel like, you know, as humans, we want to be loved, we want to feel loved, and love's really important. But, you know, when it's starting to cost you your sanity and it's starting to make you feel really upset and angry, then this is not your person. That's it, you know. And I feel like it's important to be around people that tell you the truth. And I definitely feel like I have friends that do that. But, you know, I feel like at the end of the day, I know what's best for me. I'm not saying that I don't appreciate the people in my life's opinions, like advice, sorry, not opinions. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying, like, even if someone gives you good advice, like, even if someone gives you the right advice, you still got to listen to your gut, you know, and make the decision on you know, what's right for you. And yeah, at the end of the day, right, I know that I will find the, you know, my person, not just the right person. And of course, like, if you've just met someone and it's going well and you're having a good time together, and then you get into an argument, of course it's not right, you know? Like, that's a big red flag. And I feel like I'm just not here to, you know, live my life on other people's terms. And I'm not here to have a guy tell me what to do. I mean, I don't want anyone to tell me what to do. And I feel like that's why I feel so peaceful, you know, living in this house here. I feel really peaceful because no one's telling me what to do, no one's judging me, no one's upsetting me. You know, I get along with the people I live with. And that's, you know, to be honest, that's really rare in a house share. So I'm really grateful for that. But obviously, this is just, you know, a stepping stone for me. And I do think my prediction is, I think December time or next year, I think that's when I'll probably move. Obviously, I don't know for sure. Like, I could be wrong. But, you know, the people that lived in this house share before, you know, didn't live here a long time. And they had their reasons, like, you know, two people that was living here before were, you know, very problematic and did cause a lot of trouble. But, so I totally get, you know, that's why they decided to leave. But I do feel that, you know, it's just important to reflect on things, right? And, like, whether I've, you know, got a job or not, I still deserve someone. It doesn't mean just because I don't have a job that I should focus on getting a job, right? Because I'm not finding a job right now. So, of course, I'm going to focus on love. And that's it, you know. I feel like my mentality towards love is never going to change, you know. And that's it, really. It's just remembering that sometimes you talk to someone that you know about something that's happened that really upset you, like an argument, and, you know, they don't really understand. And that's it, really. Like, I can't obviously make people think the same as me. Like, I know that my intentions are pure, right? I really do. And I know that I know what I want, right? And that's it. You know, there's just anything I've said, whether it's to someone that I've just met, or a friend that I had, or a guy that I was with, that's how I felt, you know? So I don't regret anything I've said because it's how I felt. That's it, you know? The minute that someone wants to start, you know, just messing with your head and wants to start trying to change you, that's not gonna work with me. You know, I'm a very, you know, sharp, like, fierce woman, basically, and I'm not taking crap off anyone. That's it. You know, sometimes you got to take a step back and think, actually, there was nothing to learn from this experience I had with this new person. It just wasn't right for me. That's it. You know? And people are in a relationship for 10 years and, you know, basically it just comes to an end, right? Whether that person just didn't want to be in the relationship anymore, or like arguments started happening. And I just feel, guys, that it's just not normal. Like, it's just not normal to argue, really, when it comes to love. And I totally get you're not always going to agree on things, right? But to argue is just bad. And I think that, to me, just indicates that this is not the right person, you know? And I think that also, in addition to that, I think that I'm more referring to the guys I've met, but I think, especially this guy, I think that, you know, he needs to take time to reflect on what he said to me and whether he's gonna find love, because telling someone what to do and saying they're wrong and all the rest of it, and, you know, saying they love to cause an argument and just making up lies and accusing someone of some, do you know what I mean? Just like coming out with all these accusations. I feel like if you're that sort of person that does that, you need to look in the mirror, you know? And I'm not the sort of person that's just gonna sit back and not say anything, right? Like, that's it, you know? I have every right to respond, and I have every right to protect and defend myself, you know? And why should I deal with bad behaviour? That's it. You know, it's always the men that say, oh, I really want love, I want a relationship, I've had a bad, you know, I've got a bad ex, you know, I had a bad relationship, but then, you know, you come along and you're very genuine and they just treat you like shit, you know? So, yeah, I was talking about what happened with that guy to another woman I know, and she just absolutely understood me. She agreed with me. She said he was very wrong. She said that, you know, I said to her, I shouldn't have to change who I am for a man. She said, exactly, this is not your person. And, you know, she basically was on my side, and I just felt so supported by her. And I thought, you know, yes, everyone's going to have different opinions, but I just feel like in that situation, I didn't do anything wrong, you know? If you're going to turn on me so quickly, then you have issues, you know? And I'm not just going to sit back and take it. That's it, you know? Like I said, it's like when you're like head to head with someone and you're in this back and forth argument, I truly feel like that person has a lot of growing up to do, you know? It's so easy to point the finger, you know? It's so easy to point the finger, and